Dirt filled my mouth, thick, dry, suffocating, and my daughter-in-law didn't stop. Have you ever tried to breathe and realize the air just isn't enough? Not because it's gone, but because something is pressing down on you from every direction. That was the moment I understood something simple. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't panic. This was planned. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. My name is Alaris Venn. I'm 74 years old, and I was fully conscious when she buried me. The soil kept falling, heavy, relentless. Each shovelful landing with a dull, final sound. I tried to move, just a little, but my arms were pinned awkwardly against my sides. My chest tightened as the weight above me settled deeper, compressing the space around me. I wanted to scream, but screaming wastes air, so I did the only thing I could. I stopped. I forced every part of my body to go still, slowed my breathing, ignored the instinct clawing inside my chest. Panic would kill me faster than anything she could do. Above me, I heard her footsteps shifting, calm, measured, no hesitation. That's what stayed with me. Not anger, not fear, just quiet certainty. Why? Why would Mylis Rune, 38 years old, composed, careful, always polite, do something like this? And more importantly, what did I know that made her decide I couldn't be allowed to speak? Because this didn't start here. No, this started days ago. With small things, easy to ignore, easy to explain away, until they weren't. And as the last layer of dirt settled above me, sealing out the light completely, I held on to one single thought. I did one thing she didn't plan for. Her footsteps faded. Silence took over. For a moment, nothing. Then, the dirt above me shifted. Not collapsing, not settling, moving, slowly, deliberately. And that's when a colder realization crept in. What if Mylis wasn't the only one out there 3 days earlier? I remember thinking something felt off. Not wrong in a loud, obvious way. Nothing you could point at and say, there it is. It was quieter than that. Subtle. Like a clock ticking slightly out of rhythm. Have you ever felt that? When everything looks normal, but something underneath isn't. I had been living with my son, Kedrick Venn, 45, and his wife, Mylis Rune, 38, for just over 6 months after my fall. It was supposed to be temporary, a precaution. That's what they called it. Kedrick was kind, in his way, but distant. Always working, always on his phone. Conversations with him felt scheduled, measured. Mylis, though, Mylis was always there, too present, too composed. She smiled often, spoke gently, never raised her voice. But there was something about her, something controlled, like every reaction had already been rehearsed before it happened. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. Age does that, doesn't it? Makes you question your own instincts. But then the small things started adding up. A door that was always locked. The storage room, she said. Late-night phone calls that stopped the moment I entered. Papers shuffled away too quickly. And then there was the way she spoke to Kedrick when she thought I couldn't hear. Low, firm, almost directive. Not a partner, not quite. Something else. The moment it changed for me happened in the middle of the afternoon. Quiet house, sunlight through the hallway window. I was walking past that locked door when I noticed it, just slightly open. That had never happened before. I hesitated. I knew I should have left it alone, but I didn't. Inside, it wasn't storage. Not really. Boxes, yes, but also stacks of documents. Organised, labelled, intentional. And then I saw my name, Ilaris Venn, on multiple papers, transfers, authorizations, signatures, my signature. Only I hadn't signed anything. My hands actually trembled as I flipped through them. Properties, accounts, legal shifts happening quietly, piece by piece. This wasn't confusion. This was design. That evening, I tried to keep my voice steady when I asked Mylis about it. She smiled. Of course she did. Oh, just paperwork. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. Then she changed the subject. Too quickly. Too smoothly. But later that night, I heard her, on the phone. Her voice wasn't soft anymore. It has to be handled before she changes anything. Before she changes anything. I didn't sleep that night, because deep down I knew something had already started, and I was running out of time to stop it. And the next morning, when Kadric left for a sudden business trip, Mylis turned to me, her expression perfectly calm, and said, "We should talk. Properly." That talk never happened the way I expected. Tell me something. If someone smiles at you right before everything changes, do you trust it? Because I didn't. Not anymore. That morning, after Kadric left, the house felt different. Quieter. Not peaceful, empty. Like something had been cleared out to make space for what came next. Mylis didn't rush. She made tea, set the cup in front of me like it was any other day. Then she said, "Let's take a walk." A walk. Simple. Harmless. Except it wasn't. We moved past the backyard, beyond the trimmed edges of the property, toward the stretch of land that no one really used. Trees thinned out there, the ground uneven, untouched. I remember thinking, why here? She walked slightly ahead of me, hands folded, posture relaxed. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, almost detached. "You shouldn't have gone into that room." No denial, no pretending, just that. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice steady. I told her I'd seen the documents, told her I would call a lawyer, fix whatever she thought she was doing. She didn't argue. She didn't even look surprised. She just sighed, a small, tired sound. And in that moment, something inside me dropped. Because that wasn't the reaction of someone caught. That was the reaction of someone inconvenienced. We stopped walking, and that's when I saw it. A patch of ground ahead, freshly disturbed, soil darker, looser. A shallow excavation, just wide enough to notice if you were looking for it. My stomach turned. "Mylis," I started, but I never finished. It happened fast. A shove, not violent, not chaotic, but precise. Enough to throw me off balance. My foot slipped against the loose edge, and suddenly the ground wasn't there anymore. I fell, hard. The air rushed out of my lungs as I hit the bottom. Not deep, but deep enough. Disorienting. Enough to steal a few crucial seconds. By the time I understood where I was, she was already standing above me, looking down. Not angry, not frantic, just certain. "You weren't supposed to see anything," she said quietly. My mind raced. I tried to push myself up, but my body didn't respond fast enough. And then I saw it. The shovel. The first pile of dirt fell beside me, then closer, then on me. No, wait! I tried to speak, but my voice cracked, thin and useless. She didn't stop, didn't hesitate. Each movement steady, controlled, practiced. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a reaction. This was a plan. And in the middle of that realization, while I still could, my fingers closed around my wrist, and I pressed the button on my watch. Once. Small. Silent. Almost nothing. But it was the only move I had left. The dirt kept falling. The sky above me shrinking, light fading, air thinning. And just before everything went dark, I heard her voice one last time. It'll look like you wandered off. Then, nothing. Buried alive and counting every breath. Tell me, how long do you think you could stay calm, knowing the air around you is running out? Because panic comes fast. Instinct takes over. Your body fights, thrashes, wastes what little time you have. I couldn't afford that. So I did something that felt completely unnatural. I went still. Completely still. My chest rose slowly, carefully. Each breath measured like it might be the last one I'd get. The weight of the dirt pressed down from every side, not crushing, but constant, unforgiving. Time stopped making sense. Seconds stretched, minutes blurred. I focused on one thing, the button. Had it worked? Or had I just wasted my last chance on something no one would ever see? Above me, nothing. No sound, no movement, just silence thick enough to feel. Then, a vibration. Faint, subtle, but real. I froze even more, if that was possible. Another shift. Not the soft settling of dirt, something else. Something deliberate. My heart started pounding harder now, threatening to undo all the control I'd fought for. Was she back? Had Malis returned to check? Or worse, had she brought someone with her? The soil above me shifted again. This time, a small amount loosened near my shoulder, just enough for me to feel the difference. Then I heard it. Muffled. Voices. At first, I couldn't make out the words, just tones. One low and firm, another sharper, more urgent. Not her, not Malis. These voices carried something she didn't have. Authority. This is the location the signal stopped. The signal? My watch. It worked. A sharp, controlled surge of relief moved through me, but I didn't move. Not yet. I couldn't risk it. More dirt shifted. Faster now. Hands, multiple, digging, not dumping. Air. Just a little more space opened around my face. Not enough to breathe freely, but enough to know this was real. You're close, careful. The voices were clearer now. Closer. And then, another voice cut through everything. Familiar. Tight. Controlled, but unmistakable. Here. Right here. Cadric. My son. But that didn't make sense. He wasn't supposed to be back. He wasn't supposed to know. So how? Light broke through. A thin line at first, then wider, spilling down through the loosened dirt as hands reached in, pulling soil away faster now. And just as the pressure around me began to lift, I heard Cadric say, breath unsteady, I knew something wasn't right with her. With her. But as I lay there, barely able to move, one question cut through everything else. Who was he talking about? Light hit my face, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't trust that I could. Hands pulled the dirt away faster now, careful, controlled. Someone supported my shoulders as the weight lifted piece by piece. Cool air rushed in, sharp and real. I coughed, gasped, drew in a breath that felt like it scraped all the way down. Alive. I was still alive. Above me, Cadric, 45, dropped to his knees, his face pale, eyes locked onto mine like he was trying to confirm I was real. I've got you, he said, voice tight. Behind him, uniforms, 2 officers, one already speaking into a radio. So the button worked. Here's what I didn't know until later. That watch wasn't just for health monitoring. After my fall, Cadric had quietly upgraded it. It was linked to a private emergency system, GPS tracking, distress alerts, direct relay to a monitoring service. When I pressed it, it sent everything. My location, my status. And when the signal stopped moving, they treated it as critical. Cadric got the alert immediately. That's why he came back early. That's why the police were already with him when they reached the property. And Malis? She didn't run. They found her at the house, calm, composed, exactly as she'd been in the woods. But this time, it didn't help her. The investigation moved fast. Those documents I found? Real. Forged signatures, asset transfers, property control, all rooted quietly under her name. She had been preparing for months, maybe longer. And when I found out, I became the only thing that could stop it. So she tried to remove me. Legally, it unraveled quickly. Charges stacked. Attempted murder, fraud, forgery. And once they started digging into her past, this wasn't the first time she'd manipulated someone's finances. Just the first time she'd been caught before finishing. The neighborhood buzzed for weeks. Quiet conversations, half-truths, shock that something like that had been happening so close. As for Cadric, he carried it heavily. The distance, the missed signs, the trust he gave too easily. But he didn't look away anymore. Neither did I. Months later, I left that house. Not out of fear, but because I chose to. A smaller place, my own space. Quiet, but on my terms. And the watch? I still wear it. Not because I'm afraid of being buried again, but because it reminds me of something far more important. They thought silence was guaranteed. They thought the plan was complete. But the one thing they didn't account for was that I was still paying attention.